Hey, hi, good morning, Tim.
Good morning. How are you?
Hey, good. All good so far, except there's no electricity here in the office where I'm at.
You know, you have a water leak and then you look around and you see a crack in the wall. I tell you, life just continues happening, doesn't it? Oh boy, is do you have an idea of what happened?
I don't know. I just came in 10 minutes back because we had to make the show live. And then I realized it's actually running on a backup. So uh, let's see. Anyway, we can continue as long as the backup backs us up on time. But then, what are we going to talk today, Tim? What's the agenda?
It's always up to you. One of the things that we talked about after we had a little bit of a break the last 3 or 4 days, you were interested in what has happened with the virus because we've had a little bit of an update, haven't we?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So there has been actually news circling around related to UK. They have found mutants and strains related to COVID, which seems to
Yeah.
be more dangerous and more contagious. Uh,
You know,
so
it's really interesting. When we say something changes, we worry about it, don't we? It's
yeah,
funny. Yeah, and
right.
let's actually take this and use this to talk a little bit about, business and management skills and also analytical skills. One of the things I teach my students is that, you know, emotions and the
Mhm.
emotional center of your brain is where you make decisions. And so a lot of times, um, our emotions are the ones who actually move in and say this is the direction to go. And this has been the way it has been for 400,000 to a million years. We're just hardwired, fight, flight, or freeze, and that's the way we work. However, in the last few thousand years, in the last, what, 400 to 40,000 years, we've stabilized with this huge other piece of brain, the computer brain, the data analytic brain. And what I'd like to do is to demonstrate how I work with my students to actually intercede that analytical brain in front of the animal brain. So let's try this. As long as you have electricity, let's see how this works, okay? First of all,
Yeah, I mean, it will keep on playing the role, but then we have to play our role too. So, people, here we are once again. Myself,
so
Kumar.
yeah, what are you
Yeah, you
going to
wanted to
do?
add?
What are you going to do? The problem is
Yeah,
you don't know what to do, right? Okay. So first of all, there's what we call a new variant. Okay. Non-science people like me call it a strain, but a scientist said, nope, 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 nope. It's a variant. There's only a small piece of the virus that's changed, just a little tick. Okay. And it's
mhm,
shown up in England. They discovered it because they noticed that there was something spreading really quickly. Instead of one person spreading it to 3 people, spreading it to 5 people, now one person is spreading it to 7 people to 49 people. Okay. So it's
right.
going quicker. It's more of a 1 to 7 than a 1 to 3. Oh, that was nice. Is that the power going
Yeah,
back on?
yeah. So it's running on a inverter. So there are some batteries out there. So
Okay.
it's
Okay. That
fluctuating.
was interesting.
But anyway, continue.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So it seems to be more transmittable. They took it and they dissected the virus and they said, okay, we see what's going on. Now, they have actually taken data from the 1918 um, uh, Spanish flu epidemic, and they
Right.
saw these things happening. They actually saw these happening with H1N1 too, with the swine flu. And what we know is that you have an incredible breakout with a new virus. And then all of a sudden, the virus starts getting stable, right? And all of a sudden, they have a vaccine and it just goes into the background, right? It doesn't go away. Now, let's think if we were a virus, right? If we were a virus, what two things would we want to do? Number two, we want to learn how to spread quicker. Number two,
Right.
we don't want to kill our host. So usually, historically, those are the two things that happen with viruses. And they've been watching for this. So this is the number one thing. And we were able to do this in England, capture that virus earlier than ever, and really go in and analyze it. So this is awesome. Now, good news, bad news. Um, the rest of the European Union has locked England out. They've locked down. Now, we haven't locked England down here in the US. We can talk about that later. But the European Union decided that's the way we're going to control it. Now, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean
Just an
they're
update.
leaving. Go ahead.
Just an update, Tim. Even India has actually banned the flights. I mean,
Right, right.
the
They
travel.
they shut down the
UK.
flights. I saw that. I saw that.
Yeah.
Now, you have to remember, European Union has not signed off on the vaccines. So they're in a little bit of a different position than you in the United States are, aren't they?
Yep. Yep.
So if we didn't have the vaccine, I bet we would be with the European Union. We're betting, but the problem is, we're betting that the vaccine works with the new virus. Now, guys, I'm going to get into some science. Okay, I'm not a scientist. I have studied science my whole life. I've been around scientists. I've done incredibly deep research, and everybody who's on this show, if you're interested in coming to your own opinions and own conclusions, I've shared a lot of links with Kumar and with Jonah, and we can actually share those out to you. They're public domain, they're accessible, and you can make of them what you want. Now, that being said, from what the news reports say, and I read about 12 different news feeds every day, and from what these reports say, I'm gonna share what seems to be what it is today. Now, it may change
Mhm.
tomorrow, but again, I I believe in thinking and behaving like a scientist, okay? If you have a scientist standing in front of a house and you ask a scientist what color the house is, the scientist is going to say, the front of the house is white. Let me walk around and I'll tell you what the other sides of the house are colored. Okay. This is what a scientist has to do because they don't want to make assumptions. Okay. Now, so we
Mhm.
found out that the mutation is a quicker mutation, and that's all that we know. It just runs faster. We don't know that it runs deeper. We don't know that it triggers anything else. And because of the very specific changes that have happened in the virus, we believe that the changes will be covered by the vaccines. Okay, everybody's the scientists, based on the analysis of the virus, have said, okay, assuming that this is the way it is, and this thing doesn't change much more. This is the vaccine's going to be great. Okay. Now,
So
again,
tell me this, Tim.
go
Sorry,
ahead.
just was a little bit curious in this. Now, since the virus, the new kind of virus of the same family, has started spreading out there. Um, Now, let's understand the fact out here. The same virus has spread across the globe, right? India, US, I mean, entire globe out there. Now, since it has happened to UK, what are the chances that you see getting replicated to the rest part of the world?
Oh, it's going to happen. It's already happened.
Oh,
Too bad the door didn't shut fast enough. It's we haven't discovered it, but based on its behavior, it's out. It's out. Okay, that's the
mhm.
bottom line, and we have to basically track it. Okay, now one other thing that we need to be aware of is that we don't know if people who have already had the original variant can or cannot get this variant. That's still up for discussion, and we have not discovered any of that in
Mhm.
England. So that we can actually say, we'll come back to you on that. Okay, there's no data on it. It doesn't seem to be this way, but they don't have a definitive
Mhm.
answer. It's nothing to worry about because we still have the things that impact the new variant and the original virus. Okay, number one, we wash our hands and we stay very clean. Number two, we wear our masks. Number three, we self isolate. We do this, we're okay. Now, the problem is there's still a lot of people in the world who haven't gotten the original virus. And California is just now going over a double wave. And so this could be a triple whammy. And there are places in the United States that have no ICU beds. So we're having to struggle really fast to really handle the overflow. And we don't know how we're going to do it. We're gonna just have to bear the brunt of this wave over wave over wave, multiple waves. It's it's uh, it's it's just going to be what it is, and we cannot
Okay.
we cannot step down. And that's why this getting this vaccine out so quickly had to occur.
Yeah. Recently, maybe yesterday, I came across one of the cartoon. This it was a nicely drawn cartoon, which says that, hey, you know what? Santa isn't taking leave in Christmas. Sorry, virus isn't taking leave on Christmas. Now,
Right.
look at the timing, right? Look at the timing. Uh, the 2020 started with uncertainty, with the inception of vaccine. We thought of its ending soon. Remember, last few sessions we were discussing, we are opening offices, right? And we are discussing today something else. It's again we entering into uncertainty, isn't it?
Well, you know what though? I hate to say this, but there were certain experts who had access to public communication that said, back in July, they said this could take into the third part of 2021 for us to start, you know, getting back and coming out of our houses and being able to take off our masks. If, and they were saying back then, if we can get a vaccine in time. So this was known. And then back in August and September, Dr. Fauci over here in the US was saying that Christmas is going to be horrendous. And he was saying, you thought July was bad in August? Just wait till you see December. He and the people he was working with were predicting this. And they were predicting that it's going to be rough, and it's going to be not just physically rough, but emotionally rough. And we're just going to have to bear through it, and we'll come out the other side. It's going to be different, though. It really is. We're already talking here in the United States that masks are a new normal. and a lot of
Mhm.
people are going to continue to wear their masks, if not for the next 3 to 5 years, indefinitely. This is part of our
Right.
culture. Yeah,
Yeah. At the
and
same time, yeah,
go ahead.
just wanted to
Go
add up
ahead.
here. Uh, at the same time, since the entire world, the population out there, I mean, we are now a kind of, we are accustomed. We know how to be to get ourselves protected. So on that note, I don't see it as a, I don't. I mean, it's another virus, just another virus, and I'm sure the coming days it's going to be all about viruses. You remember there was a time when the nuclear came in and the weapons, right? People were talking XYZ. Now that has actually vanished. You have viruses in place, right? So one virus comes in, you work hard to get a vaccine, then another virus kicks in, you work again to get a vaccine, third comes in. I mean, this is gonna be new normal life, isn't it? What's your thoughts on this?
Yes. Yes. First of all, we were due for one. Okay. We get them.
Hmm.
We get them. 535 AD, a huge volcano erupts. Okay. And it blows dust all over the place. Okay. It creates a winter, what we could call the nuclear winter. What would happen if a major nuclear bomb went off? Okay. And it caused
Hmm.
a huge temperature downturn for the next 7 years because of all the dust in the air. It caused a mini climate change. And what
Hmm.
happened was inside of rats, they carried a viral contagion. Okay. Now, that viral contagion, if it's warm, dies off and the rats just expel it. But if it's cold, that viral contagion can stay alive if those rats expel it. And so the rats can spread that. And all of a sudden, from 536 AD to 542 AD, what do you have? You have Black Plague. And this was caused from a volcano going off. We think. We think. That
Hmm.
happens. This is going to happen. We're living inside of a body. It's not a human body, but it's a body, and that body has ebbs and flows. We had the 1918 pandemic. That was the last big one. So we've been lucky to go a century without a major one. Now, with the climate change, you can expect things to get goofier and goofier. We're waking things up in the tundra that weren't there before.
Hmm.
We're worried about that. So we have a bunch of scientists out there. We're worried about what's happening in other parts of the world, and we're keeping an eye on them. And things are changing. And when you have change, all sorts of life take advantage of it. There's a new type of coral, by the way, that seems to be resilient to temperature change that's coming out. Nature and humans should take a hint from nature. Nature could be one of our greatest teachers. Nature says, "Oh, that doesn't work over there. Let's try this and see if that works." Nature will thrive. Nature will thrive with or without humans. Nature's going to go. It's
Right.
just, it's debatable right now whether humans are going to be able to be part of the bus that nature's driving. So, yeah, we're going to be doing this, and we're better armed to actually handle these things.
Hmm.
Now, the question is, can we learn how to do this and do it in such a way that we can move forward as a community? That's the big question that all of humanity has to ask ourselves. And we're doing it
Right.
as businesses, as individuals, as families, as neighborhoods, as cities, as states, as nations in the whole world. And we got to figure
Right.
this thing out if we want to get along and make it work. And again, I have 33 events in the last 6,000 years where we didn't figure it out. So the odds are against us.
Now, going to the future, we will go to the future discussion. But since you take so much interest in history, right? So let's dig in a little bit of the past. Um, what memories? I mean, memories. No, you weren't there at that time. But then, what information you have from your research related to? I'm talking about before the World War First, when there were viruses and this measles and all, right? Uh, how long it took to again become a world to be a safer place? I mean, do you have some data points on?
It depends on how they responded to it. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go to 1918. I'll give you New York City for a certain point.
Mhm.
Okay. In New York City, we had a lot of immigrants right there, right? And they were packed into tenements.
Mhm.
And they were on top of each other, and they kept their windows shut because they believed a virus was traveling through the air. So if I block off the air, I'll be better. Now, we know today that fresh air blows the viruses away from us, and the virus, being outside of a body, tends to die off rather quickly, right? Okay, now what they did was they said, let's get these kids out of the tenements and into public education. And so they invested a lot in public education in New York. And they brought the kids there. The kids were eating better. They had a routine and a habit, so the kids safer. And so it was a great response. It wasn't that anybody planned it, it was that they just did it and it worked really well. Now, let's go back to Rome with the Antonine Plague. People were in tenements there and they died. Okay.
Mhm.
They died. The people who were wealthy, who had little farms. And let's face it, if we were back in Roman times, Kumar, you and I would have a farm outside the city that we could go to on the weekend, okay? It's just the part of the culture and the part of the society we're in. And they'd go
Mhm.
out there and live, and they'd be out in the fresh air, they'd be isolated. And they'd be able to live there and do their work because they'd have couriers. Sometimes the couriers died, but at least they would be able to function and work there. And then again, up on the major hills where the real executives were, they'd basically create an isolation where they would make sure they were totally broken off from humanity so it wouldn't happen. And the same thing happened in the Black Death. You have people just leaving, and this is what happened to Rome eventually. Enough of these plagues went through that people decided, no, I don't want to live in a city. I want to live somewhere else where people aren't, so I can survive. And this is what part of what actually crippled Rome and forced Rome to become the city it is now. So it
Mhm.
really depends on a lot of luck. It depends on a lot of trying different things. But when it comes down to it, viruses, once they're here, are here to stay. They are one of nature's wonderful miracles. And whether it's a good or bad miracle, they're very successful at number one, staying around, number two, growing and changing, and number three, adapting so that they can actually be more successful. They're incredibly, if you can, if you can step away from the impact they have on our lives, they're a miracle in structure. It's fascinating. It really is. Now,
Right.
my worry is, how can we, and I'm talking about everybody on the planet, how can we best keep our feet under us and make sure that we can actually
Sure, that we can.
stay stable and be able to make the right decisions through these changes, because we're dominated by fear. And when we hear there's a new variant, I am scared, and we can't turn this off.
Yeah, a little bit more on the history part. I'm asking this because I know you have a lot of interest in the history chapters. Now, if you actually pull out those chapters, and do you have any evidence which says that, hey, you know what, this pandemic came in, and then there was some medicine or vaccine or whatever which actually came in time, and then it helped to take that away? Do you have any evidence on the past, or was it just the time which healed up uh, by its own?
So every time we had a virus or an epidemic or a pandemic hit, we used the medicine and the science at hand. We are good at it now because our science is better than it ever was. You remember the plague doctors? The have
Mhm.
in Europe, the doctors who would wear those really weird beak masks and be dressed in heavy clothing. They were there because they believed that the air itself was sick, and they would put what they called nosegays, and they would put things that made the air smell better inside the nose of the mask, and they believed that worked better. Well, it did to a certain extent, because number one, the doctor had something that was filtering the air, and number two, it isolated them from other people. Nobody wanted to be around them. Now we know why it worked. They just knew it worked. They tried everything. It's like in the United States, Indians found out that there was a certain bark of a tree that took your pain away for 8 to 10 hours, and that's how we got aspirin. We do this on a regular basis. This actually came to its real fruition back in the 1800s with the emergence of scientific analysis in biology and biochemistry. So again, we do this all the time. We did it by experimentation and trial and error, all the way. Again, beer in Egypt, right? You, it was funny because you can't drink water. You don't want to drink water back then. So what do? You drink something that actually ferments, but it has
Mhm.
something in it that will keep it, without being able to carry any pathogens in it. So we've been doing this experimentation. It's only that we've been able to structure it and take advantage of it, take full advantage of how experimentation works. And it's an incredible miracle that we could actually do things today. We couldn't have even done what we did with this vaccine 5 years ago, 5 to 7 years ago. This is we're actually um, the luckiest of all humanity to be living, and we should be celebrating that.
Yeah, technology has certainly improved a lot. Right. Now, coming back to the present time, with this new virus coming in, I mean, new would be a wrong word. It's basically of the same family, right? A mutant. What are the concerns that you foresee? I mean, what's coming on the way?
Well, okay. So let's look at the virus itself. It's going to continue to change. And that's not a worry. That's not an if. That's a certainty. Okay. And we're going to have news about this. And so this is a fact. Okay. and we're going to be on top of it. Now, there are certain parts of the world that say nothing's wrong. There is no virus. Iran just said, okay, we have a virus right now. Until now, Iran was in public
Mhm.
denial of a virus. And think about what the response of a nation to its people would be like under a government like that. Okay?
Right.
So
But I
this
did,
is the worry.
yeah, they did kept denying the fact, but there were news coming out that people were getting affected within Iran.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
virus doesn't care. The virus doesn't care whether we believe in it or not. But the problem is,
Right.
and the problem is, denial of the virus just delays the response to the virus.
Constant.
And that's the problem. That's the real worry right there. That's my number one worry, okay? Because people get afraid, people don't have information, they don't know what to do, okay? Number 2, people get afraid and we fear for good reason. Fear is our
Mhm.
friend, but the problem is fear's like a wild horse, okay? If you can
Mhm.
use the wild horse out in the field, it will take you fast and far. But if you bring the wild horse into the kitchen where you stay and you worry and you fret, that wild horse is going to kick out the windows and everything else. So fear is one of the things that I'm really concerned about. And it's the public, what we call the public sentiment. It's not just I'm scared. It's not just Kumara scared. It's like humanity is scared. And that's where things get really goofy. That's why when you have other tensions inside of a nation, having this on top of it, it builds exponentially. And any issues that you have, any conflict you have, any arguments you have are going to be they're going to be magnified, powers of 10, powers of 100, and powers of 1,000. And that's what we worry about. So what I have taught my students and what I tell my mentees is, guys, data and data analysis is your friend. Practice stepping in front of your emotions, saying hi to your emotions and recognizing them, and then bringing to the table this thing called data and data analysis and say, let's see what this new friend says about this. And this is something that you can learn. We learned how to, express our emotions. And some of us in our families learned how to blow up and be very angry
Mhm.
when we're frustrated. And others learned how to sit and say, okay, we have a problem here. What are we going to do? And you can actually learn. It's a behavior and a perception, and the perceptions and behaviors are some of the easiest things to change. Now, the problem is you can't change the perception behavior of all of humanity. So what you have to do is do it as individuals, and the leaders have to show the way. You cannot have a leader who blusters. You can't have a leader who is just, spreading rumors instead of spreading, the science and the data. You have to have somebody who actually demonstrates what all of humanity needs. And for this, we have to look at some experts, and we can talk about that if you want to. There's some very simple sets of decision making we can use, and practicing them not only helps us control our emotions, like against the pandemic, but also control ourselves and start being able to make really good decisions in the middle of a crisis. And that's what we're dealing with here. We're in the middle of a crisis, we have a change, and how do we keep our balance and still move forward while dealing with this change? Welcome
Wonderful.
to life.
Yeah. Welcome to life. This is life, absolutely. Now, what do you think, Tim? What should we do now? I mean, we know the threat is there. I mean, we know the virus is up in the air. What do
Well,
you think we could do best?
find 17 sources of information and compare them, and then get out the popcorn, okay? We cannot go into a test lab and make the science work better. We cannot do anything to make things better right now. What we can do is have patience, stay informed, and practice taking our thinking side of our brain and working through problems, because this is going to stabilize. Once again, this is going to stabilize, and all these viruses are going to go into the wallpaper, and we're going to get our yearly shots, and we're going to move forward until we have a new normal, until the next virus hits. Okay. Now, what we can do is learn how to think more critically, and that's everybody. That's everybody. This is
Hmm.
just what we're going to do. There's two models that I really push. One is what's called quote unquote critical thinking. There's a serious path, and then there's a scientist from the 1960s called Carl Sagan. He died much too early. Bless him. And he left us with an incredible legacy. And one of his greatest gifts to humanity was, how do you deal with processing information like this
Hmm.
that's really big in your life? And he did a really good job. In fact, we probably have a little bit of time, depending on your battery, to run through a couple of those. Is that what you want to do, or do you have some questions, more questions?
No, we haven't received here questions in from the audience, but we would like to hear from them if there's any queries related to it. But before that, we move on. Coming back to the future part of it. In the last few of our show, we were discussing on opening the offices. Now, do you think with all this new things coming up, should we still open the office? It's a tough question.
Okay, okay. Let me tell you why I stopped. Okay, because I don't know. The data knows. We've done something in the
Mhm,
United States that is really brilliant. Okay, so the CDC, the Central Disease Control people, right, and the HHS, the Homeland Health, right, all got together and did nothing. Okay. The federal government was basically ineffective, and they broke and remember talking about this, they broke the national data analysis tools, right, because they
mhm,
wanted to control communication. And so what happened was, various parts of the country, governors got together, and nobody's talking about this, and they said, you know what, I think we know what to do. One governor says, we have a national laboratory over here. Let's look at the data. Another governor
mhm,
says, we learned something over here. Let's do something. And so, about 3 months ago, they actually turned on some data analytics, and said, a county here is having a bad breakout. Let's get a bunch of people who are unemployment. We'll pay the minimum wage, and we'll find out what's going to happen, and we'll trace back how that happened. And over 2 months, they figured out where the breakouts were, and they got really smart about that, and they shared the informations. Right, it was happening around the bars, it was happening
mhm,
around the churches, it was happening around the restaurants. And so the governor said, okay, bars, churches, and restaurants closed down. And the churches got angry.
Right.
You have no right. And the churches stayed open, and more people inside the churches died. And we collected that data. It was sad data, and I'm sorry it happened, but we learned a lot, okay? We learned that the data analytics and the analysis we were doing works really, really well. And so what I suggest is that you stay as close to as effective data as you can and say, should we stay open or not? Because that is going to tell you more than anything. There has to be a trusted data source somewhere. Now, it could be just the nightly news. It could be Associated Press. It could be whatever news. It could be 5 or 6 business owners talking together who are actually
Mhm.
picking up things from the villages and the towns around the cities. If that's the best you can do, please, by all means, do that. And then you can see how it's spreading if you can get to that point. Now, somebody's already doing that in your country. What you need to do is find out who's doing it, where they're doing it, where the data collection is occurring. And then through that, you can actually say, okay, I see some patterns. And you can see the ebbs and waves of the data. Google Analytics. Google Analytics is wonderful for this. I'm working on data science a little bit, and I did a couple examples, and it's frightening how you can actually take one set of web searches and another set of web searches. People are already starting to talk about uh, stores shutting down over here, and then they're shutting over here, and then they're shutting over here. And if you take enough snapshots of that, the data, it's and this is what the university students are doing.
Yeah.
They're frustrated and angry, and some of these university students have more information than we do. Isn't that scary?
Right. Right.
See,
I see
and
what you're saying. Yeah.
and so we can actually forecast what we should be doing, and we have the tools available. And the question is, can a few of us, if we are isolated from the real analysis going on in our nations, can we actually do this? And the answer is, oh, yes, and please do. Please do. You may have to reinvent the wheel. But if people are bored, like they're in lockdown, or people are bored because their businesses are not up to 100% capacity, this is a really good exercise to keep your teams and your groups effective and moving forward. How's that for an
Mhm.
answer?
You know, I 110% I agree to the point. Now, the only thing is, like you gave an example of Iran, right? It took some time to accept that there is a virus issue in their country. All the time they kept on denying it. And then denial always uh, creates trouble and it delays your response time. Similarly, now the point is, we as a human and we as a business need to accept that there is a virus. Let's accept it. Yes, there is a
Mhm.
virus. Alrighty. Now, what we need to do, uh,
So,
how we can
so,
live with it,
so you've already gone into lockdown, right?
right?
We went through lockdown and we worked under lockdown, and now we've come out of lockdown. What we need
Right.
to do is document that because now you have a flexible playbook. How did we do that?
Absolutely.
What went wrong and what went right, and how can I take advantage of each phase? And that's the key. This is what humans are really good at. And it's not just the leader doing it. It's everybody getting together and collaborating on this. Are we out of
No,
power?
I totally agree with you, what you said. Create enough data points. Sorry, people, I have a problem at my end here. Tim is absolutely fine. I have an electricity issue today at
Hey,
my
hey,
office. So
you've
pardon
made
him.
it this
Uh,
far. You've made it this far. So go ahead and finish your thought.
yeah. So uh, so yeah, you rightly said that. Collect the data points, do some analysis, and create your list of activities, the do's and don'ts. Right now, I'll tell you my thoughts so far. The kind of data that I have with me and the analysis that we have done here. I'm talking with respect to India. Uh, that too more specific with respect to Bangalore. Okay, uh, what my read is basically if you maintain your hygiene, if you maintain your social distancing and the mask and the sanitizer in hand, you are still kind of 70% safe. What is more important, you keep your immunity at the top level, right? If you're immune, the virus will take some time to hurt you, right? At
So
times,
here's here
7 out of, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so you're exactly right. Now, we already do this in our homes, right? What does mom say? Mom says, wash your
Right.
hands, it's time for dinner. Mom says, wash your hands and brush your teeth. Now, we have to bring mom back into the office. We can't just be dad
Oh
telling
yeah.
people to get work done. We have to be mom and dad. Now, here's the bad thing. In the
Hmm.
2000s, 2004 to 2008, there was a major wave of multinational corporations who got rid of middle management because they believed middle management was overhead, and they believe middle management could be highly automated. Anyway, middle management is just there to say no until somebody's pushy enough to make them say yes, right? That's the role of middle management. No, and we got rid
Right.
of mom. Corporations got rid of mom. You don't have people shining their shoes for church. You don't have people pressing their shirts. Things are going wrong. Mistakes are happening. Risk is not observed. Quality goes down. And that's what we've seen coming out of the 20th century and into the 21st century. We are living in the age of a single parent corporation environment. And what we need to do is bring mom back. We have to accept and communicate that we are a family because we're sharing air, we're sharing space, we're sharing um, uh, physical presence, and we have to talk about these things, and we have to be comfortable talking about these things. It's it and we're it's going to start with us. It's going to start with the businesses, and the business says,
Right.
guys, we're a happy family, for better or worse, and every happy family has its goof ups, and every happy family has its strengths, and we're going to pull together, and nobody's going to be left behind. That's how a
Right.
family works. And we're going to have to do that. Now, this is the foundation of all society. It starts with the family, protects itself, and then multiple families create a community, and multiple communities create a kingdom. And we have to think about doing this to this response. Every time we're brought back to our knees, we're going to have to rebuild that way. Bring what we know is good and right at the family level back in. Now, everybody knows what's good. Everybody knows what's right. That's the lucky thing. Those philosophers back 6,000 and 10,000 years that said man is inherently good, yeah, we know what's good and right. We wash our hands.
Right.
We make
Right.
sure that we make sure that if the food is spoiled, we don't eat it. We know this stuff. What we have to do is, I hate to say this, we have to talk about it publicly, and we have to work as a family inside of our companies. Like I said, it's going to be uncomfortable for some of us because we don't treat our fellow workers and our employees as family. But once we do, we can use those dynamics and take it to our advantage.
No, I totally agree with you here on this point. Now, uh, the thumb rule remains same
Oh,
for
yeah.
almost everything, may it be a personal or a professional or a business, whatever. Now, if we come to the basics, like you said, mom's telling you, right? Certain things which you were doing when you were a kid, but as in when you grew up, you forgot. And you thought like, it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, I know better, right? I know
I
better.
know that.
That is, do you know what? Do you know what I know better is called? It's called hubris. And hubris always brings kings to their knees. Always,
Right.
always, always. The once you say I know better, you are defeated.
Rightly said. Rightly said. I mean, oh, that's a huge statement to make. I know better.
No, we don't. Nobody owns the truth. Nobody can wrap their
Yeah.
hands around the truth. Nobody knows better. That's why we have experts. That's why we have people who spend decades in a single area of science. This is why we have society, so we can actually protect those people who make the vaccines and can tell us about those vaccines and tell us when to stay in our homes. And if we're not listening to them, we're destroying society.
Right. Right. No, good. I mean, here, mom. Yeah, I mean that's a good thing. I'm gonna
Bring
call
mom
up my mom soon after this.
Yeah,
Bring
bring
mom. Yeah,
mom into
back.
the office because mom is our savior. Mom gets on our
Yeah.
nerves, but mom is our savior. Mom makes sure that our shoelaces are tied so we don't trip on ourselves. Mom makes sure we look our best. Mom makes sure that the machine doesn't fall apart tomorrow. That's the beautiful thing. And all of us are mom and all of us are dad. And we call that respect. And respect is a virtue that every society holds in value. That's the beautiful thing. We are all mom and we're all dad. And if we respect each other and trust each other, that's how we get through this.
Absolutely. All right, people. In the chat window, we have put in some of the links, which is publicly available. You can read it through whenever you have time. I'm sure it will give you some more information that we just discussed.
And
This is a
guys,
holiday season.
yeah, and I want to say something quickly.
Go ahead.
Information is changing daily. It's not just changing weekly or monthly, it's changing daily. So please do your own research. Go ahead, Kumar. I'm sorry.
No, I was just curious to know what's your plan for the Christmas.
Oh, well, I'm actually sitting down with two or three books. I'm thinking about what I want to do for the next 5 years. I want to figure out what I have to have in place to do what I want in 5 years. So I'm going to do some strategic planning. I'm going to spend time with my family, of course. I'm reaching out to my friends right now, and I'm getting ready for a really busy 2021. So it's
Yeah,
downtime. These are the only downtime I take in my life cycle. So I'm going to use it to my advantage. I've already slept more in the last 2 days than I've slept in the last 2 weeks. It I tell you, it's a wonderful time to be alive. I can't shut it off. It's so exciting to see this unfold in front of us. It's tragic, but at the same time, seeing the resilience of humanity and our ability to adapt to these change, I just have to celebrate not just being part of humans, but the fact that we are coming out of this and we're going to come out of it stronger.
Right, right. Now, so before we, enter into the new year altogether, we'll have two more shows, I believe. One is going to happen on Thursday. We'll have our friend back, Margot Keen, on the show to talk through in more details. That's coming Thursday, same time. And then me and Tim will have another show that's going to be on Tuesday. And then we'll directly enter into 2021, a new year with some plans. What I
Ooh.
really want to hear from you people is uh, share your plans. Share what's running in your mind. What do you think how 2021 should treat you? If you have certain plans, please share that with us. We'll love to include that in our discussion and make you a part of
And
our show.
and if
Tim,
you've
would you
never
like to
done
conclude on this?
Yeah, and if you've never done that, if you've never done planning before, let's all get together and I'll share what a an executive, a guy who made 8 figures a year, told me. And he actually, I talked with him for about 3 to 5 years. And I stayed in touch with him, one of my clients, and he taught me how to actually use strategic planning, not just in corporations, but for your personal life. And if you want to hear how a guy in who makes 8 figures a year plans his life, please tune in. I think you can learn a few things, and it'll be really exciting.
So wonderful. Thanks for your time, Tim, and thanks for the wonderful discussion. We'll continue the same as the virus is going to continue. We are not leaving it behind any day. Okay. Uh,
Very good, very
yeah.
good. Thank you, Kumar. It's always a delight, and it's a wonderful time in my life to be participating with this with you. And let's not just talk, but let's also celebrate. Let's make
Yeah.
sure that we do something really wonderful here. Thanks again, Kumar. Thank you all, people who are dialing in, and we hope to stay in touch with you.
Yep. With this, Kumar from Bangalore and Tim from US signing off for the day. See you on
Th-
Thursday. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Good day. Bye bye.